of go through some breakdowns and some things, but I always find that there's a really weird relationship between solar salespeople especially and realtors or the real estate industry. And I think it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, or it shouldn't be that way. And ultimately, we're all salespeople, right? So that said, the thing that salespeople don't want is anything getting in the way of their sales or ultimately their commission or things taking longer. So what I suppose has happened is over time, the same way that if you go to a restaurant and the service is great, everything is perfect, it's very rare for somebody to find the manager on the way out or go on Yelp and put a 5-star review. But if your drink is always empty and your steak's not cooked right and the sides are cold, well, what happens? Find the manager on the way out, you tell all your friends, you're screaming from the mountaintops, don't go to this place or don't do that or avoid this company or whatever it might be. So what I suppose has happened at some point is, especially going back several years ago where things weren't quite as regulated, there were some potentially some issues with, I can't say that any one company more so than others, but there are obviously issues where closings get held up, or you think the perfect house and then the potential buyer says, oh, solar, I don't get it, I don't know why, I'm just going to avoid it, whatever. And what does that do? It gives it a bad name in general. So I hope to, and hopefully things have been cleared up over time as more people have done it, it's become more mainstream. We've all had to deal with one thing or the other, but I hope to clear some of that stuff up and just kind of why people are doing it, why it's really an asset for a home, and how the best ways are to go about doing that. So what I would again like to kind of accomplish is just getting through some of those things that are either misconceptions or how or why, the negative, and then kind of walk you through how it works to better understand what type of programs are out there. So that said, what do we know about the industry or solar? Has anybody experienced with, well, you do at my house, right, now, but experience with either selling a home or having somebody buy a home with solar, or something that's not gone very well, or things that have gone perfect. So I kind of wanted to start there if possible.
Anyone?
I'm like, brand new.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one thing that I found is even like selling your house, selling other houses that have solar, is they don't get the difference between the sale and the lease, and then the purchase agreement, which is even the hardest thing to get across. So can you explain the difference to us, and then
100%.
also give us some layman stuff that we can help, that you use to teach people when you're sitting at a kitchen table, so that we can explain to our
and that's honestly kind of why I don't like doing things canned whenever possible. Even when I go into a home, first thing I do when I sit down is, hey, what do you know about solar? Whether it's I'm just approaching them out of the blue or it's a referral, what do you know? So we can separate the fact and the fiction. So what it boils down to, there's a few reasons people do it. For the most part, it's savings, right? They want to save money. They're just tired of everything else going up, but all the household bills, taxes, groceries, everything else, they want to kind of rein something in. So friends done it, neighbors done it, seems like it might be a good idea, and then they want to kind of learn about it. Essentially, there's two ways of doing solar at this point. And different companies, so let me just preface by saying, everything I'm going to tell you is based around what we do, Vivint Solar. We are the second largest residential company in the country. By far, we've done the most installs in Long Island. We're probably hovering somewhere about 12,000 Long Island installs in the last 5 years, five and a half years, somewhere in there. Just out of, to kind of explain that, this is, so that's the Selden zip code. So all those pins are homes that just our company has installed just within the 11720 zip code. So I can pull out multiple zip codes and kind of show you where that's gone. We've always kind of worked west to east as well. So there's been just kind of that migration ultimately. So Different companies offer different things, but it's all kind of, everybody's got their own little twist for stuff, but ultimately, there's two ways of doing solar. Either the homeowner can own the panels, either through cash, which nobody really does anymore because who's got the spare cash, or through financing, which has become pretty popular at this point. Or the solar company can own the solar panels, just like PSE&G owns all their infrastructure. So let me talk about that first, because that's where most confusion lies. So when a solar company owns the panels, it's referred to either as a lease or a power purchase agreement, which is a lease's cousin that nobody's ever met before. Like, it's the cousin from out of town. And it's extremely popular. Most homes on Long Island have a power purchase agreement, and the term lease gets thrown around. Well, they're leasing the panels, or they own them, they're leasing. Most of the time it's a PPA. The main difference, at least the way we construct them, so our company, we're late to the lease game on purpose. So we've only done a PPA up to about 2.5 years ago. Then we came out with a zero down ownership program, or cash, and then only about 8 months ago did we create a lease program. So we got to the lease party late, but because we came in late, we got to customize it the way we wanted to. So all the negative stuff about leasing, right? Don't lease. There's a lien on the home. You can't sell the home. They have to pass credit so you can buy the home, but you might not get qualified for the solar panels. All this negative stuff, we got rid of. So we structured the lease exactly like our PPA. And the main difference for us, a lease is just an equal billing point. So I'll give you an example. This is a home that's actually being installed Friday in Salem. So when I come back, when I go into the home and I get some basic information from them, essentially solar is based on need. So we're going to look at their utility bill. On that bill is a bar graph of how much power they've used in the last 12 months. If they haven't been there for 12 months, we use whatever they have. And then there's a couple of methods for calculating the rest. On paper, we're doing 96% of their overall power consumption as opposed to PSE&G. The main difference between a PPA and a lease, so a PPA is referred to as a power purchase agreement. Essentially, it's the exact same business model that you all have right now with PSE&G, right? PSE&G, if you look, and I'll show you a bill in a second, if you look at one of their bills, you're paying twice. Half of the bill is delivery fees, right? About 45% of the bill is for actual electricity, and the balance is delivery fees and taxes. So when you have a PSE&G, when you sell a home to somebody, what are they paying for the pole that's at the end of the property or 2 houses down? Nothing. What are they paying for the meter on the side of the house? Nothing. There's no cost for their infrastructure. It's all got to do with the electric company, whether it be PSE&G, LIPA, LOCO, as far back as you want to go. Their production is coming from out of state. A little bit of upstate New York, but they're starting to close the power plants down. So it's all coming from out of state, which is why the delivery fees and surcharges are so high. All we're doing is we're taking a modern day infrastructure, we're putting it on their property, and we're allowing them to produce their power on site, cut out all the taxes and delivery fees, and just get them a lower rate. So essentially putting solar on their home in a PPA style setting is like filling a car up with cheaper gas. Who's been going to Costco exclusively for gas since they opened? No, right? Exactly, because it's 35, 40 cents less expensive. The only thing is you have to have a membership. So we don't charge for a membership. Obviously the home has to get qualified, but if average PSE&G rate right now is about 22 cents, you're coming in, you're getting power for cheaper. So anytime you have to buy something by the unit, right? If you're gonna buy 1,000 pencils, you want it the best price you can get. Well, if you're buying 4, 5, 6, 12,000 kilowatt hours, your home's like 20,000 kilowatt hours or something like that, you want the best price you can get for it. So we just kind of come in, we're PSE&G's competition, we have to play very nicely with them, but we kind of come in and push them out of the way, take that house over, and get as much of the power as we possibly can for that customer.
Do you take that over no matter how much energy is used? Meaning that if I have a month where I'm expending more energy than the solar panels bring in, am I still paying Vivint the price per kilowatt they agree to, or does the solar have to cover the amount of energy used?
Right. So that's a good question. It's all based on need. So if you take this house, for example, I understand the camera can't see that, but if you take this house, there's a lot of extra space in this roof. We get 96% of their power need. One more panel would pop them over 100, which they could potentially do. However, we've got to get their permission to go up over 100%. You can have a house where we fill up all the available roof space and we're going to get 70% of their power or 50%. I've got homeowners that have made the changeover at 30 and 35%. And the difference is, would you rather have a discount on 30% of your power or pay full boat for all of it? Right? So it's all based on need. We're going to have one or two best case scenarios. They're going to hit their usage target, or we're going to maximize their roof space, and whatever is left over comes from PSE&G. Now, second part of your question, if you have a bill, so this is 96% on this particular home, that graph there is showing how much power is produced every month. What will happen is if you have, so the month of July is 472 kilowatt hours should be produced. If they only use 300, the other 172 will roll over. It's like rollover minutes on a cell phone plan. So it'll carry over to the next month and then the next month and the next month. And then ultimately, throughout the year, we're going to do just about all their power. So if they have those rollover minutes or rollover credits, they're going to use them in November, December, January, February, and then ultimately they'll be depleted and then they'll kind of start fresh. On the flip side, if we're producing 472 and they need 600, they're going to get the balance of that from PSE&G at the going PSE&G rate, and that's, again, they're getting the majority of the power at a cheaper rate.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure can.
I mean, like you said, you have all that extra space. Why, how much more is one panel to cover 100% of their electric this way with no bill?
Right, so this, in this particular situation, again, it's just a matter of them, and I would have to go back to them, like I have the information, now it's time to go back to them and say, hey, here is your situation, here's what we can do you want to leave it as is, do you want to go to, maybe it's going to go to 102, 103%, that's up to the homeowner.
Now, are you allowed to have zero electric bill?
Yeah, and you're always going to be grid connected.
So you take a truck, that's what I mean, a friend of mine, he lives in Connecticut, he has solar, he has very small electric bill. He wanted to get, there was some battery or something that can control, deliver the power, and they won't let him get it because then he'll be completely off the grid. So they're, is that the same on Long Island where they won't let you be completely off the grid?
So you're not completely off the grid, you're always grid tied. These systems are usually grid tied. So even like my PSE&G bill is about $12 to $13 a month when the solar is producing all my power. And let's see again. It is just for connection charges. So they charge you 40 cents a day to be connected to the grid. And a 30 or 31 day bill, you're gonna have like another $1 in taxes. So it's 12, 13 bucks a month. Regarding batteries, it's almost utility by utility. So that's gonna be the next big change with solar. Here on Long Island, it's probably a few years away from making sense.
Then nobody needs power lines
But you're still gonna be connected to the grid. You'll still be connected to the grid unless like our PSE&G has a complete change of heart. And that's why for us, it's really gonna be more of a luxury thing. Where the battery, right now, think of it like a plasma TV. 10, 12, 15 years ago, there were these big, huge things. They were super expensive. They maxed out at like 40 inches. And they were great compared to tube TVs, but like who could really afford to bring them on? It was more of a luxury thing. Now, it's Prime Day yesterday, whatever, you can go get like a 50, 60 inch TV that is 5 times better than that was. It's tiny, it weighs 50 pounds, and it's a third of the price, if not less. So that's kind of where batteries are gonna go. Think of the Prius 15 years ago when it first came out, right? And the mile per gallon and what the range was versus the cars that are coming out today. So that will change. Now, if someone's going to invest 10 grand in a Generac system, and they can invest the same 10 grand in a solar battery, they're better off the solar battery, because they'll use it every day, right? You get a generator, you hope to never use it. It's an investment it's like insurance for your home. The solar batteries, the way they're meant to work, are supposed to work, and again, PSE&G isn't really got mainstream with them yet, you'll use it every day. Because at nighttime, when the sun goes down, you'll feed off that battery first before you pull power back from PSE&G. And then also, potentially when power's out, so without power for a week after a storm, you'd have the battery being charged up as well. So they're not quite, like we're testing right now in California and Utah. We're gonna go to markets kind of on a need-based type thing, but the batteries are gonna be more mainstream 2, 3, 4 years from now. But yeah, it's a pretty common thing we get asked these days. So, did you have a question also?
No, I was going to ask about the battery as well.
Yeah.
So.
The good news is, at least we can retrofit batteries down the line as they become more mainstream, more popular. So the equipment we're currently installing is adaptable to that. So again, as salespeople, what do you want? You want the opportunity to sell a product to the same people because you build trust and relationship with them. So it'll be a happy day when that's available, but it's not quite there yet. So ultimately, again, getting back to the difference between a PPA and a lease, whatever our rate's going to be for this home, we're going to, on a PPA every month, so those blue bars on the bottom, it will vary. So in December, which is the lowest production month, it would be 150.4 kilowatts, or whatever they actually do produce, times our rate. In July, 473 times our rate. So their bill will fluctuate, all right? Their PPA is they're just agreeing to buy our power versus PSE&G's power at a discounted rate. We can tell them for the next 20 years, they're 20-year agreements, we can tell them for the next 20 years exactly what that rate will be. We're capped, we go up 2.9% every year, that's it. So there's a lot of cost certainty with it. A lease, what we're gonna do is take that same 3881 times the rate divided by 12. So the way we do a lease is essentially a balanced billing version of a PPA. There is no, any of our product, there is no lien placed on the house. There is no credit check to purchase the home. If you sell a home with solar and it's our company, they get the home, they get the solar. There's a part of a transfer agreement, which I'll go over in a minute, but it's very, very simple.
Because I sold a house with your companies,
Okay.
and it was a lien on the house.
There's a UCC1 filing. So it's not a property lien, a UCC1 filing, it's more of a contractor's lien. So what we have is we notify on a PPA release, since we own the panels, there's 2 reasons it's on there. The first, there is no property tax increase because of the solar, because we own it. So they can't charge you taxes on something that you don't own on your property, right? So that's number one. The second thing is, if a home is foreclosed upon, right, we need to be able to claim that property and not just, it doesn't come with a short sale, it doesn't come with the home once the bank takes it over and flips it. So we need to be able to, in the worst case scenario, claim our property back, so that's why it's there. So in the situation of my own home, I'm in contract, Pete selling my house. So in that time frame now, I started a transfer process with Vivint, just like any homeowner would. I happen to work there, so I know some of the players versus just calling it a 800 number. But I start the transfer process. I basically give them permission to speak to the buyer, tell the buyer, hey, I give them some of the information, their name, their email, their phone number. Buyer calls in, they verify that information I gave them to make sure it's the right person. They basically give them some additional information. They start the transfer process, and then right now, as of right now, that filing is lifted. So it's removed for 30 or 45 days to allow for the title company to do their thing, so it doesn't show up anymore. Home closes, everything transfers over to the new person.
Because, there was no real hitch in mine. It was just a matter of they had to be approved for whatever the monthly, the yearly lease was on top. When I did this is a few years back. Yeah, on top of the other, and it was, they didn't have a problem with that. but that was how it went with that
So
particular
what they do is they get permission from the new homeowner to run a credit check, but it's not until after closing, right? So it does not interfere with their ability to buy the home or sell the home or get qualified. After the closing, they may not, but they can run a credit check, and it really just, we're a public company. So investors want to know how many of our customers have a tier 1 credit rating, how many have a tier 2 credit rating, how many have a tier 3 credit rating. So when they're buying and investing in the company, they know that, all right, 90% of their customers always pay their bills on time, they're 750 or higher or whatever. That's the main reason, just so they know who our customer base is.
No, this was during the process, so maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's potentially, but I honestly haven't heard of anything like that. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, it just never came to my attention. And that's where the only time that I've received phone calls that things were getting sticky. We do want at least 2 weeks, but they really want closer to 30 days to do that process. So I've gotten phone calls, hey, we're selling the house next week, what do we have to do? And I'm like, you have to rewind and call me 3 weeks ago, is the best way to do it. So that's the only situation where, again, that's where sometimes where the real estate industry gets pissed off about solar, and we get pissed off that realtors tell their friends or neighbors or family, don't do solar if you're gonna sell the house, and that's where this whole big thing happens. But if the process is followed pretty closely, it goes off without a hitch.
So I think that's a really important point, that if you're helping someone buy or sell a house with solar, that they reach out as soon as they're under contract.
Yeah,
right?
that's
in the moment, so that they can get that rolling, so there's no delays.
yeah. And it really all starts, again, to me, of course, I've got one biased opinion, and you know, other people have other biased opinions about it. But if you're selling it as an asset to either your buyer or someone you're selling their home, if you look at it as an asset, that's what it's going to be.
Is this for rentals or because the two different
Leases.
types? Yeah.
Yeah,
lease
either
for
way.
Owners, right?
Yeah, honestly, either way.
Because if you're an owner, like I sold a house, they had solar, they didn't have to do anything. The
So they
buyers,
owned it.
because
If they own it, yeah, I mean, if they
right.
own it outright and there's no payments or anything left
Right.
on it, that's honestly pretty rare,
Right.
right?
That's-
Because
I had that.
it's extremely rare, but that they own it outright as of
Outright.
today.
Mhm.
Most people that are in an ownership, they're still financing, they're still paying it off. And that's okay too, because you either satisfy the loan, the additional proceeds from the house, or you transfer the debt basically and say, hey, I owe $10,000, for instance, on this, you can pay it off tomorrow, you can pay it off, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever it is. But this is what your electric bill is every month, and it's got an end date on it. So again, if you look at it like an asset,
Closing.
most people will do it that way. But if you look at it like an asset, that's what it's going to be. For instance, the buyer's realtor on my house, she was pretty well versed in it. She actually worked we didn't know this right away, but she worked in the industry for another company 4 or 5 years ago. So she had a decent amount of knowledge, and her buyers, they looked at a couple of her homes with solar, so they were kind of familiar with it. And then I just kind of filled in some blanks for them. And that's really it. I've taken phone calls from, so most of my customers, if they're gonna sell, they'll call me and say, hey, give me the lowdown, what do I gotta do? We're gonna put the house on the market. And I'll just tell them, don't do anything until closing. If you have questions, call me. And I've taken calls from potential buyers, real estate attorneys, realtors, and just to kind of fill them in. Once people understand how this stuff works, it's extremely simple, and they're really looking forward to it for the most part.
I'm selling another house with solar, and this one's an ownership, and there's $13,000 left on it. And some people were leery about the $13,000, but then we showed them what the bill was, and it's $80 a month versus an electric bill that might be $140 or $150 a month. And they were very happy to take it over and buy the house, leave the loan in place. Question?
If it's $80 a month for their electric, what were they paying every month for the financing?
No, it's
that's-
it's $100 all in every month
Oh.
for the loan on the house plus the $12 a month at PSEG, because it covers 100% of the solar of the electric. So they were happy to take that, because it's not about the amount of money. Sometimes it's scary when you first hear it, but then they see it's just a different payment that's less.
Right.
and they're happy to take that on.
Now, can that solar payment go up, just like electric rates can go up, you know?
So if it's owned,
Like
and it's
say
fi-
5 years, if the oldest plan that they had, that it would benefit them to go with the solar panels because it's, in the long run, it's cheaper. Say in 5 years, the electric rate doubled or went up 20 cents per kilowatt hour or whatever.
right.
The solar rate, can that go up?
So it's fixed, and that's where it differs between ownership and a lease or PPA, right? A lease or PPA, we're telling you ahead of time, hey, we're putting this on the home, it's gonna go up 2.9% every year. 2.9% is about a half a penny per kilowatt hour, and that's good for a year. Then move up about another half a penny. So it takes typically 2 years to go up a cent. PSCA&G goes up at least that, and legally I can't say more than that, but we kind of
Right.
can read between the lines and understand that there is no rhyme or reason to their rates.
Yeah.
They can go up 6% one year and 2% the next year. They can be different, and they are different month to month. But if the system is owned, it can't change. It's like when you buy a home, your mortgage is locked in. You can refinance a mortgage loan, obviously, that's a different story, but your mortgage is locked in. That's not going to change. What changes is the escrow stuff. Your insurance can change, your taxes can change, and that's where it's kind of similar. So buying solar, doing a finance for solar, you're basically mortgaging your electricity, right? So if you've got people that are buying a house, especially if they were renting previously, and all of it, hey, why'd you buy the house? Well, we wanted to own something, we wanted to own it. Well, it's more expensive that way. You could have rented a similar home and be less than your mortgage, taxes, and homeowners insurance, right? But yeah, we wanted to own it. We wanted to build equity, we wanted to be able to say we can, have more value to it. Why would you continue to rent your electricity then? Why not have the same relationship with your power that you do with the home? So that's where for that demographic that maybe they're first-time home buyers or they're young, they're doing an ownership program. Ownership is a little bit more costly than doing a lease or PPA off the bat, but in the long run, it's a larger savings. Because once you pay it off, it's like buying a car versus leasing a car. You can do the same car, that purchase, that financing be another $100, $150 a month compared to leasing the car, but you get to pay it off and then drive for free for a few years until the car's dead.
Let's say when the panels get damaged, if you own it versus lease it, how does that?
So they're covered, they're warranted and covered as far as manufacturer's defects and that type of thing. A tree limb falls on them, something like that, that's your homeowners, right? And here's the thing why that's not scary. If that tree limb's gonna fall, it's gonna fall with or without solar panels.
Right.
So if there's no panels there, right, you're getting shingle damage, potentially plywood damage or after damage. If it's in a storm, you're getting water damage as well. Solar panels are a shield for your roof. So they're keeping the home cooler in the summertime because the sun's not baking directly onto the upper floor of the house or the attic. They are protecting it from the elements, all the elements, so the roof's gonna last a little bit longer. And you are protecting a little bit from that branch. So you could potentially, you could crack a panel, maybe two. That's gonna be a heck of a lot less messy and less costly than the alternative without it.
Right.
So that's a common question that comes up. When we own the panels, everything's our responsibility. The same way if a transformer blows on your street or someone damages the pole, that PSC&G is not going to go around and collect from you and your neighbors. Hey, $50 from you, $50 from you. You use a ton of power, that's $100, so we can fix this. No, that's their infrastructure and it's their cost of doing business. So, make sense?
Yep.
Cool. I got a little bit off track. There was another question I thought, but so let me just take you through here. This is so I sent Pete some digital copies of this, so you guys can share them
I'll
that
get this
way.
out to everybody.
But this is just a nice little family. It's wonderful. So this is, you're looking at, you're selling a home or you're buying a home, you have a buyer, and the home's got solar. So a couple of things you want to understand about it. So, first thing is home value, right? Generally, it is, depending on if it's owned or if it's a PPA or lease, who owns it, as far as putting a numerical value on it. An appraiser they can't appraise, they can't add new value because of solar if the homeowner doesn't own it, right, naturally. Now, there's definitely a perceived value. People buying my house, when I told them that between, I happened to be there for the home inspection, so they were picking my brain on some things. But the gas bill, the water bill, and the total electric between the solar and whatever's left in PSE&G, average monthly is $257 a month. And they were a little bit happily surprised by that, and it just kind of makes sense. So there's a perceived value for them, but the appraiser wasn't able to add any value to the home. If it's owned by the homeowner, then yeah, there should be additional value added by the appraiser, and they actually asked the question when they came out and did the house as well. So there's articles you can find out there. There's one that came out in April from Zillow. Nationally, homes with solar sell for 4.1% more. New York, 5.5% more, just with the perceived value of solar. So people are going to transfer certain bills over. Maybe not name, but there's going to be a water bill, there's going to be a gas or oil bill, there's going to be an electric bill. If you can transfer over a bill that's significantly less and some tax credits potentially as well, it just makes it that much more valuable. So again, it's important to understand if you're looking to purchase a home that's got solar, what kind of solar is it, right? And hopefully this helps everybody be more well versed in those options. Do they own it? Is it a lease? Is it a PPA? So understanding exactly what they're in for, and you can definitely put your buyers at ease knowing, you know, what some of the differences are. So why solar? I wish I could say that more people did this for the environmental benefit. It's definitely the green of their wallet, not the green of the environment, 95% of the time. But and look, I'm not going to go hug anybody's trees by any means. When I did this in my house, it was for financial reasons. But you can't help one without helping the other. So no matter what the motivation is, it works both ways. So here's kind of traditional power, right? The end unit, the home, is pretty far away from that power plant. And that's why it's so costly, or one of the reasons. Versus solar, everything's on site. So the panels obviously are producing power through the sun. They're converted into the appropriate power for the home, the AC power, and everything is tied into the meter, tied into the grid. So the grid will move backward, the meter will move backwards. If there's more solar going on, more electric than needed, creates those rollover credits. Otherwise, PSE&G will continue to add power. So at the very least, it's slowing that meter down, for sure. So buying process, again, I kind of touched on this, but really, really simply. Either at an accepted offer, honestly, I think wait until contract, because things do take some time here in our market. You can kind of wait till contract, so you're dealing with a specific person. If you have multiple offers, you're not going to call them every time you get an offer. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. So let them know when you're in contract. They'll start that process I mentioned earlier. When the home closes, you're going to let them know again, and then everything's going to be transferred over to that buyer.
Do you treat it like a utility? Like saying like normally we say you're closing, when we have a closing date, you're going to call PSE&G, the Water Authority, all these people, let them know on this date you're taking over. Is it the same with solar? Do you let Vivint know?
Yeah,
This is
so
our closing date, start billing us or whatever?
Even for my house, I had an email yesterday, hey, just let us know your approximate closing date, we can adjust it. But that's the reason why. With the other utilities, ultimately, and they probably don't do this because most people leave the closing table and they go to the house, right? So the lights are still on, things are just transferred over, the water's still on, maybe cable or whatever, internet or whatever, that's going to be turned off and then turned back on. With this, the sun doesn't stop shining. We can't stop that from happening. So it's really just a paperwork thing. So all billing's electronic. So they don't want me paying for the person that's coming into my home, for long, a day or two, I'm okay with, I guess. But that's what they kind of want to know, so they can cut one off and then start the other one right away. But yeah, they just want more advance notice than.
It doesn't take that long, right?
No. No, if you follow the process, it goes really, really smoothly. This is just, as far as the company goes, an area map of where we operate. And this is just some kind of testimonial here.
Is there a difference, actually, Karen, is there a difference as far as the permit that you're getting from the township, whether you're leasing it or owning it?
Same permit. Permit's just to put panels up. The towns are weird. It's another thing we constantly hear. The town comes? Nope, don't want it. Want nothing to do with it. And it's Long Island. Everybody's got something they're hiding from the town. Going back to that picture, the overhead of Selden I showed, you think most of those people don't have an apartment in their basement or a shed or a deck or a pool or whatever. Town does not go inside, or towns do not go inside the home. Most of the time they're doing a drive-by. They're just doing a panel count for the most part. Right, so we put in a permit for 20 panels. They want to get an idea, all right, they didn't do 22, did they? Make sure we're following the appropriate paperwork.
So if it's on the back, they do have to go into the backyard.
Actually, the town, in theory, you're not supposed, you can prevent them from going in your house, but they can say, yeah, we want to go in your house and check something or whatever. They're not supposed
You don't have to let them.
Right.
Yeah, there's
They do have a way sometimes,
so
but
on the
they do.
permits, it just says the permit's for a, 20 panel, 8 kilowatt, solar system, and that's it. They don't look to go.
But if you have a
into the
front
home.
porch,
But they're doing their inspection, they're checking the hookup to the side, so they're more on your property, they're seeing more.
Well, theoretically, yeah, and I explained it to, if we've all seen at one point on Lethal Weapon, are they getting Danny Glover, or are they getting Mel Gibson, right? Danny Glover, thank you. Danny Glover is 2 days away from retirement, and he's looking to check a couple boxes off, and Mel Gibson is looking for action, right? These are, not to take anything away from anybody, but these are town employees who are so overworked right now and so busy. Brookhaven Township, our permit process is about 3 months right now. Anything they want to do in the home, not just solar. They are so understaffed over there that it's crazy.
They
so
recently did a total overhaul.
yeah, so most of them are looking to be in and out pretty quickly.
a lot of the permit guys left. A couple of the permit
Yeah,
guys left.
There's a whole.
So I know one of
my.
my clients is one of them, and he said,
It's a
I'm
mess.
so overwhelmed.
Yeah. So there, again, I'm not, especially on video, I'm not looking to say, hey, none of this matters, and you'll get away with anything. That's not necessarily true. But it's not the big deal everybody kind of makes it out to be. If that was the case, we'd have 1,000 customers, not 12,000 locally. One thing they are somewhat concerned with is pools. So pools are a little bit more concerning than a shed. You could die in a shed, it's not likely, but the neighborhood kid comes over, falls in your pool, and now it's like, well, what the heck, this is illegal. So that being said, if you think these towns don't have Google Earth like everybody else does, and go and look for all that type of stuff, and drones and everything else, you're fooling yourself.
You're talking about above ground pools or in ground?
Any
Either way, you need
pool, really.
above ground too.
And there's certain requirements, and I can't speak for the towns because they do change their policies from time to time as far as what needs to be permitted and what doesn't. Pool permits are really, really easy and simple and inexpensive. We've helped many, many people get their pools and stuff legalized. And there's some times where homeowners just like, hey, I know I've got these 3 things, I don't want to deal with them. I'm going to sell the house in 3 years anyway, I'll deal with it then. Okay, it's kind of short-sighted though, because in that 3-year time, you've got a lot of savings, you've got value you're adding to your home. We can help you with the paperwork, and there's a lot of financial loss by not doing it as well. So you got to deal with it now, or you got to deal with it then. You might as well take the help and the money and deal with it now. But some of the towns, like I do a lot of work in Patchogue Village. 1 week turnaround time, done. It's really, really simple. Brookhaven just overworked right now and understaffed, and Islip is 3 to 4 weeks. Babylon's like 4 to 6, sometimes 8. Smithtown's 2 to 3 days. Oyster Bay 2 to 3 days. So it's just a matter of their turnaround times. But the town is not really the boogeyman, or towns are not really the boogeyman everybody makes them out to be. And most of the time they'll tell you, hey, we're not going to allow solar permit because you've got a check, or you never dealt with this or with that. They're not really trapping people by saying that. And worst case, you're just gonna renew the permit and renew the permit and renew the permit until you just deal with all the other stuff in your property. So this is an app that we have. Homeowners can see exactly what they're producing. It updates every hour. So I can go online right now, I can see what I produced so far today, the week, the month, the year, lifetime, etc. And just some frequently asked questions. What options do I have if I want to sell in the future? How much power does the system produce? And those are all things that this is pretty individualized. Selling, again, it's pretty simple. It's not the big deal people tend to make it. This is very similar, but this is selling the home. And you guys will have access to this. So there's the type of customer agreement. So will a lease, PPA, or ownership affect the transfer process? It's really just important that the homeowner understands, or the buyer understands what they're going to be getting potentially. So questions can be asked and fires can be put out if they even come up to begin with, and they have an understanding. Pretty simple. How fast will it sell? You guys might have different opinions, or you might agree, but Department of Energy has found that homes with solar often sell faster than those without. We need, on paper, we're going to say at least 2 weeks. I always feel more comfortable with 3 to 4 as far as doing paperwork. And we do handle everything kind of behind the scenes. So a couple of helpful tips. Selling a home with solar. To make things go smoothly, choose professionals. This is for our homeowners, right? We're telling you, choose people that know how to sell a home with solar, which is why I'm here. At times, it depends on the buyer. They may be picky, they may look for proof, they might want 4 to 6 months, a year's worth of bills to see what the differences are. That's really going to be based on the buyer of that potential property and what their thoughts are. I think I gave them the last year of invoices. They didn't even ask for it. I think I did volunteer in my house the last, here's what I've paid. And most people, especially if they own another home or they're renting and paying a utility bill, they know what typical utility bill can be, although it does vary house to house.
Now, if they have the app, can we just show them, like, go back in time instead of getting something?
I could, yeah. I can pull up and show it to you now, but the chances of the homeowner being there when you're showing their home is probably slim to none.
They had left the whole year on the table.
That you can, the more information you can provide for that open house or whatever, the better off.
You can do a screencast too. If the app is cool looking, we can do a screencast and then send the video out of the data right from the phone.
Yeah, you can get pretty creative with it, but it's all a matter of the more information, just like the rest of the house. If they redid a bathroom, the bathroom was just redone in 2016. If the HVAC was just up to date, you want to make sure people know that. So the more information, and again, that's to me, people walk around like, I don't know anything about that asset of the house. You want to have that information and be able to.
Knowledge is power.
Exactly. So discuss the ownership terms with the potential buyer and take them through the remaining life of the agreement. So again, hey, we lease the panels, here's our monthly payment, it's fixed every month. We have 15 years left on it, and then you can have them removed, you can buy them at that point, you can start over, you can start fresh, there's multiple different things. Worst case scenario, like any other agreement, it costs money to end an agreement, right? So if for whatever reason, and this is not going to happen, people are like, what if the next guy doesn't want it? This is as I'm talking about the concept. You're never going to know, right? And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but a potential buyer is not going to be taken to an open house or for a showing if they absolutely don't want solar, right? I would imagine part of your job is sitting down with your buyer and saying, what are your wants? What are your must not? Like, can't have it, right? If you want a home that's a ranch, and you take your buyer to a 2-story home, that's on you, right? So if they don't want it, you're never gonna knock on the door or go to the open house and say, hey, we love the home, we'd like to give you full asking. Just do us a favor and remove the money-saving, earth-saving panels off the roof, and we'd be happy to give you what you want. But it's not gonna happen. So you'll lose 10 people, right? I mean, if I showed you my panels are the older, I'll call it uglier style, and they're right smack in front of my house. Did I potentially lose 5 or 10 people when they saw the photos of the house? I probably did. But did I gain 5 or 10 people or 20 people? Probably did. So you're always going to have some fall off, and you're going to have some people that are attracted to it. Biggest thing again, I mentioned getting an accurate appraisal. So with or without ownership is going to come into play there. If you've signed the PPA or have a lease agreement, make sure again that both realtors at that point understand how it works. It's a different story once lawyers get involved because they want to justify their own existence. And they'll kind of ask a bunch of questions and stuff. And again, the more well-versed everybody is, the better. And again, so as soon as you receive an offer, or in my case, I always perfectly will contract, let the company know, work with the buyer to complete the necessary paperwork, and keep them up to date on the closing. And this kind of goes into the same stuff. So we went over kind of what some of the information looks like that a homeowner receives before they do the solar, and how that would work and what it would mean to a potential buyer. Kind of the popularity, and then some of the documents to make it easier to do a trial. Any other questions?
What should we know as realtors to make sure that we are doing everything right? Like, did I miss anything during this process? If you were stepping into my shoes trying to help you, what would you have done differently?
I don't know that there was anything in that situation that could have been done differently. It was especially helpful that Nicole was somewhat well versed, and the buyers were somewhat versed in that. And although we had a frenzy of activity, we didn't really get to a point with anybody else that I'm aware of. You might have fielded some questions I didn't know about as far as what the agreement was and how it worked and all that. So if those questions came up, I never knew about them. But if a longer process might have led to something, we were in and out pretty quick, right? A home that's on the market for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, and it's got different people and things are spaced out, there may be more and more questions. There is a decent amount of turnover within my industry. I've been with the company for 4 years, so I have a lot of, I've had 5 or 7 people sell, actually now probably 8, not counting myself, and they'll reach out to me because they know I'm there with the company, I haven't gone anywhere. Sometimes you have people that, they're rep from the company, whatever company it is, they're not in the industry anymore. They've left, they've gone to a different market or whatever. So now if they're dealing with corporate end of things, and they might not know the local end of things as well. So if they have a relationship or they have a contact within the whatever company it was that they used, that should be the first step, just to gather new information. From the realtor's perspective, again, hopefully this is helpful just to have an understanding of some of the basics of terms and how it all works. And ultimately not to be intimidated by the solar and to use it as an asset. But if you can, before you list a home, make sure that you have as much information as need be, and even for yourself reaching out to the company, that can only be beneficial. If it's you're looking at a home with a potential buyer with solar, then you kind of know what some of the questions I would ask. But in our case, I don't think there was anything that could have been done differently. I think looking back, the fact that, yeah, I'm in a different situation. I know more than the average homeowner who has solar on their house, or better. The fact that I was there at the home inspection and the buyer was able to pick my brain about it, I think that maybe helped as well. But there's no reason anybody within the real estate industry can't have a very good idea to answer those questions.
Sure, and hopefully this helps. And so we'll have, if it's all right, we're gonna have people being able to contact you.
Yeah, no, I encourage it. I'll leave you a stack of cards as well. And you've got my contact information, and any questions. Again, I'll try to answer whatever I can. Obviously, if I have access to it, and it's our company that did it, which is a fairly good chance at this point. I can totally speak to it. It's hard to speak to what some other companies have done, will do in the future. Some companies will tell you absolutely don't do anything but buy the solar panels, right? That's not a bad way to do it. I'm a proponent of ownership under the right circumstances, right? There are more circumstances where a lease or PPA does make more sense than ownership as well. It's just a matter of that's better for them, so they're going to push that on the homeowner, right? We do everything, so it doesn't matter a difference at all to me what a homeowner decides to do, what option they go. I'm going to tailor it to what their need is.
Do you do incentives, like if you buy them, not outright, but like I think PSCG used to, I don't know if they still do incentives, like if you buy a certain amount, you get back a certain amount?
So that's, thank you for bringing that up, right? So there's tax credits involved with solar. So I honestly would have forgot to mention that. So PSE&G, the NYSERDA rebate, is gone. It died about 4 years ago. We use all of it up here on Long Island. It's still upstate, but it's gone here. So there are state tax credits and there's federal tax credits. And they vary depending on if it's owned or if it's owned by the company or the homeowner. If the company owns the solar panels, the homeowner is entitled to a $5,000 New York State income tax credit, all right? It's on a power purchase agreement. It's 25% of whatever they buy in green power for that year. So in 2019, let's just say they spent $1,000 with Vivint Solar for their monthly bills, they'd have a $250 state income tax credit. So it would reduce their, either add to their refund from the state or reduce what they owe by that $250. And it will fluctuate based on what their payments are. That carries over to either the full $5,000 or 15 years, whatever comes first. One advantage potentially of leasing is because it's a fixed payment, the state will give you 100% of that money up for the same $5,000. So same scenario, they spend $1,000 in power, they get a $1,000 tax credit that year, again, up to $5,000 or 15 years. So you have someone that is putting solar and it's a lease, essentially their first $5,000 of electric is free. Depending on the house, that's 2, 3, 4 years maybe of power, it's free. They're paying for it, they're getting it back at the end of the year, or it's coming off their tax bill, one way or the other. It's solar credit with the government. Federal is, so if you're buying solar, you also get a federal tax credit. It's 30% of whatever the system cost is. So simple math, a $30,000 system, $9,000 federal tax credit. Then you have the state, which is 5. The net cost is 16 grand. So the government, for ownership, the government's paying, depending on the house, an average of 40 to 45% of the system.
Do you have to be owner occupant to do it? So if I bought a rental that I thought would be a good fit for solar,
There depends on the.
or if I moved to a new house,
Yeah.
Can I continue to get credits?
It depends on a few different factors, but once you claim it, let's say it's owned and you're getting the federal and state, that's coming off whatever the tax year is that the system went active in. So if it's 2019 and you're going to claim that credit and you sell the house, you got it already. That's it. So you actually can continuously do that.
As long as you use up the first credit, you're saying you can buy a new house and get.
You can do it. Yeah, I mean, again, without being a CPA, it's hard to answer that type of question definitively again on video. But thanks. I'm gonna lose my license here. But yeah, ultimately, you buy 2 houses that you put solar on both of them. You've got double the tax credit. Now, what your tax appetite is for that, I can't know. Right, so that's really between you and your tax professional to figure out what you can use and when. However, it does roll over. So it's free government money. It doesn't make any sense not to use it.
And you don't have to fill your house up, right? The roof, you could buy like a certain amount of panels?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately,
Have a panel.
we're gonna, we're going to go off a need, and we're gonna say, hey, to get as much solar as we can for this home, to hit 100% of what your usage is, it's gonna take a dozen panels, or 2 dozen, whatever it is. Ultimately, we're gonna try to give you a best case scenario. If you decide that you only want 20 of them because you don't like where these 4 are, you want them removed, remove them. That's fine, we won't put them up there. Keep in mind, you're gonna buy more power from PSE&G as opposed to, you know, getting all your power come from the solar. But that's, sometimes people make that aesthetic choice. It's rare, but they will.
And is it around, it is like 30,000, all right, to fill up a roof? Let's say
It-
ranch.
It's hard.
There
to say.
is-
I know, that's why I'm trying to,
I can't ballpark it. I wish I could. You can have a ranch, right? I can live in that ranch and I could use 3,000 kilowatt hours a year. You can live in that ranch and use 6,000. Same house, right? You could have a ranch over here that gets double the amount of sun as a ranch over there because the orientation is different with their shading. So people ask all the time, well, give me a general idea. I can't. This isn't like a driveway, you know? Oh, I'm gonna redo your driveway. Oh, it's, you know, whatever, 60 linear feet. How that's this much? It's nearly impossible. So that's where we come in, and it's very minimally intrusive to get people that information, and just being able to say, I'll show you this because you missed this earlier, but I get very basic information, and I come back to a homeowner with something like this, and now they know exactly where they're going, what their production looks like, and once I have this information, now I've got numbers, I've got costs for them as well, whichever type of program they want. But there's no real ballpark.
Similar to like a manual J doing a heating and air conditioning system, what their, you know, their insulation is, their windows, what kind of windows they have.
Yeah.
You know.
There's a few different variables that can determine that stuff.
So if the, you know, potential buyer starts asking that question, then they give me your card and say, this guy can answer all your questions, right?
I'll try. I'll certainly try. So.
All right. Ed's going to be in the RE/MAX Integrity Leaders app, so if you need them, this video will be in the education section once I edit it and put some stuff in the background. I'm going to try to put these graphs and things behind you while you're talking.
Okay.
No promises.
Okay.
And, all right. Thanks, man.
Cool. No sweat. Have a good day, guys. Thank you. Thanks.
We'd be able to